And we're lost without being able to communicate. If you want to communicate with someone, it has to be one-to-one. There can be 1,000 people sitting in front of you, but it has to be one-to-one. If you make them feel like one of 1,000, you're never going to connect with them.
I agree with that.
If you make them feel like you're talking only to them, and every one of those 1,000 people feel that way, or as many as possible, then you're connecting with them. When you're able to do this, you develop another level of confidence that you didn't think was capable, and that permeates the rest of your life.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Greetings, business stars. It's one of the most dreaded acts on earth, public speaking. But today you're going to hear from Peter George, a public speaking coach and trainer who had a rocky start himself and has built a powerful personal brand around overcoming one of the world's biggest fears and turning it into a strong and profitable business. Today, he's going to share his story and how his personal brand played a role in building his own dream and hundreds of others.
Now we'd like to welcome Peter to Be Bold Branding. Welcome, sir.
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
We have lots of questions on this topic today, Peter.
We do. And so all the listeners know Peter's from Rhode Island. We were just talking about that, or he's in Rhode Island anyway. And we were just talking about that before we came on air.
Yeah, he mentioned that someone asked him, what state are you from? And he said, Rhode Island. And she said, what state are you from? She did not know Rhode Island. It was a state.
But it is.
It is.
It is.
A little one, but it is.
Okay, Peter, let's start with this. Was there a specific event in your life or a person in your life that you feel shaped who you are today and ultimately resulted in what you're doing right now?
The person that had a lot to do with shaping my life, and this isn't unique with me by any stretch, was my dad. My dad was my hero, my mentor. My dad was a firefighter in Providence, Rhode Island, and I wanted to grow up to be just like my dad, including being a firefighter. He had other ideas for me, but he loved being a firefighter. It gave him a good, solid, stable life. Absolutely adored it, but he had other ideas for me, and he was right. And what it comes down to is I wanted to be like my dad because he helped people. Ultimately, what a firefighter does is they help people save their lives in other ways as well. So I couldn't do it in his way, but I found a way to do it for myself. So even though I lost my dad when I was only 30 years old, he's been a constant in my life. I'm 64. By the time this airs, I will have turned 64. He's been a constant in my life to today and always will be.
Oh,
that is really good testimony.
That's
there.
Heartwarming. That is heartwarming.
I saw the fireman's hat behind you and was going to ask you before we got on air here what that signified. So yeah. I take it that was him.
Yeah, that was one of his. That was one of the old type, the metal ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's all beat up. It's not in its original condition, let's say. And that's because that's the one that saved his life. A ceiling fell on his head during a fire and the helmet took the brunt of it. So.
Wow. Incredible story.
Yeah. So I have all his helmets, but I keep that one on display.
That's the one I would display too.
You bet it is. You bet it is. So I have one more question for you.
Sure.
You know, so you said your dad really didn't want you to be a firefighter.
No.
But you said you had a lisp and a stutter when you were younger. So how on earth did you end up going toward public speaking? The question everybody's wondering right now, right?
I consider myself a very improbable public speaker. I did grow up with a lisp and a stutter, and I went through therapy, and therapy in the early and mid 60s was really torture. I don't know if it would be called therapy today. I don't know if they'd allow it today. And it might not be quite as bad as I'm making it out to be, but that's surely how I remember it. And it was just repetitiveness. Every Tuesday morning from the 4th grade through the 8th grade, I sat with a therapist who just said, say this tongue twister and say this and do this with your mouth and this with your jaw, and for 5 years. And I hated Tuesday mornings because of it, but it worked. Ultimately, by the time I got to high school, just before, the lisp and the stutter subsided. If you listen closely, you'll hear them both rear their ugly heads now and again. But the thing that happened was I didn't want to communicate with people. The last thing you want to do, especially as a kid, if you have speech impediments, is open your mouth.
Right.
And you do two things very well. One, you learn to shut your mouth and keep it that way, unless it's a close friend, family member. And the other is become fairly proficient in sports, because if you were good in sports, you didn't get picked on. So I learned to do those two things very well. But then I got into the corporate world when I got out of school, went and worked for Sony Corporation, and I had to present. And it was funny because I said to my boss, my vice president, I don't do that. I don't talk in front of people. I don't even want to talk to you. And, and he was a great guy. And he basically said, well, that's okay. Either get help or clean out your desk. Your choice.
You're in complete control of your own.
Yeah, he said, it's up to you what you want to do, but those are your two options. So I went and got help and started to become a better presenter. Well, actually, before I did that, I read books, listened to cassette tapes, did every way I could to devour information on public speaking. And then I wanted more. So they sent me, thankfully, to get group help, which was very good. And then I sought out an individual to help me, which was even better. And that's how I became much more effective at public speaking.
There's a lot of takeaway right there, actually, because, we are big believers in, if there's a portion of our business or a portion of whatever we're doing that we don't know, we go seek out the people that do know. You can fumble around and try to figure it out. You might get lucky and figure it out. But we are big believers in finding a coach that can teach you what it is that you need to know or help you shore up an area of your life you need improvement on. I just think that's a big deal. You probably felt like you really didn't have a choice for that because you wanted to keep your job, right?
It was an awesome job, and I didn't have much of a choice. But, over the years, I determined it's not how, but who. I can sit and figure out how. I can watch YouTube. I can read books, the internet, whatever it might be. But it's a lot easier if you get someone that knows what they're doing to help you.
I agree.
Absolutely. So at what point were you sitting around thinking, okay, I've done this, I've overcome this fear? At what point did you think this is an opportunity for you to help others do the same thing?
When I left Sony, I opened up my first company, which was a publishing company. Odd thing about that was I didn't know a darn thing about publishing. And my wife of 3 months basically said, and I'm assuming this is a clean episode, so I'll keep it that way. What the heck do you know about publishing? And I said nothing, which I thought would make for a very short marriage. However, I know I can outmarket anybody I've met. So I wanted to open a publishing company, and I did. 3 years later, she left her corporate position to come work for me. I worked for her for the next 12, and we had a great staff, great writers. And 15 years later, we sold that company to a larger publisher. So it worked out well. But why that matters is during that time, we started to use a product that everybody uses now in publishing. But we were one of the first to use it. As far as I know, we were the second one in New England to use it. And the company came to me and said, would you come and help us promote it? Would you speak about it? I'm like, sure. And I spoke. I don't know how well, but I spoke about it. And I saw a bump in our revenue. And that bump went back down a little bit. And then I was asked to speak again, and the bump was there again. And it didn't take me too long, especially since I'm married to an accountant, to realize that every time I spoke, we got more revenue. I went, if I speak more, we'll make more. That sounds like a good deal. And I just started speaking more. Yeah.
Another takeaway. We also learned the same thing, like in branding, because the product is so ethereal a lot of times, and there's so many people out there slinging personal branding or even branding, and they don't really know what they're talking about. Even huge corporations will help you build your brand, but they're a website company. That's not building a brand. That's building a website and promoting a brand, possibly. And of course, this to be the fact there. But we found the same thing. Like, if we can get in front of the crowds, if we can talk to them, explain to them the product and the process of it, then they get it. In the world that we live in nowadays, if you expect them to just figure it out from an ad or they're not going to do it. They've got too much on their mind, too many other things that they think are important. And so you got to present.
Right. And whether they're listening to you on a podcast or sitting in an auditorium or a breakout room listening to you, if there's a connection, which hopefully there is, who are they going to opt to do business with?
Right.
Agreed. They self-select, just like someone sitting listening to a singer. They self-select to go buy their music.
Agreed.
Mhm.
What would be like the one piece of advice that you would give people about overcoming their fear of stepping onto a stage? Like how does that start? Other than maybe one foot in front of the other.
The first thing I'll tell them is
Control
they're
your
never going to
breathing.
overcome it.
That's
They'll learn
fair.
to deal with it. They'll learn to manage it. Well, it's
Love
not that
that.
they won't overcome the fear. They won't overcome the feeling. And that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
And Michael and Tanya, if you think about it, when let's take the fear of public speaking or anything else you're nervous about, jumping off a cliff, hang gliding, jumping out of a perfectly good plane, any of those things, what happens to you? Your heart races, your palms sweat, your knees get weak, your mind goes blank. Well, that's what people feel and experience when they're going on stage.
Mhm.
Well, what if you love to jump out of a plane? What if you love to jump off a cliff or do those weird roller coasters out there now? What happens to you? Your knees go weak, your blood pressure goes up, your heart races, your mind goes blank, all the same things. The difference is when we think we're nervous, we say, oh, I'm nervous. Oh my God, I don't want to be here. And we put all these negative connotations to it. But when we enjoy doing it, we say, isn't this great?
Isn't
And
this
we know that
It's
feeling is
exciting,
just
yeah.
getting us ready to do something cool.
Yes.
So if you can relabel that nervousness into excitement, and let's face it, if you're speaking, someone says, we'd like you to get up and speak and say a few words, or we'd like you to speak at this event, or even be on a podcast, you're doing something relatively few people in this world have the opportunity to do.
Mhm.
And that's a pretty cool thing. So
Mhm.
look at it that way. Take
That's
what you're
great
feeling and
advice.
say, my body is just getting me ready to do my best at something.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
I agree with 100%. You know, I've been an auctioneer for 30 years, mostly sold automobiles and real estate. If you ask me to get up at a car auction, it doesn't matter where it's at in the world. I'll take the microphone, I get up, I go to work. Don't think anything about it, right? Love it. Enjoy every second of it. If you put me in a charitable situation and say, oh, we just heard you're an auctioneer. Will you get up in front of the crowd and auction off this lamp? I'm like, I don't know anything about lamps. You know what I mean? Like all that starts in my mind. Now I'm going to get up and do it for the exact reasons that you just said. But it's a feeling, like you said, it never really goes away. Like you don't get rid of the butterflies just because you've been doing something for a very long time. I heard boxers say, look, if you're not scared when you get in the ring, you're going to lose. Like that's just the way it is. Like you gotta, but they feed on that. And I love that advice. That's fantastic advice.
Well, people will ask me every now and again, you know, you've been doing this for over 30 years. How do you still get enjoyment out of it? And I say, well, I never look at it that way, but I do know the day I don't feel that way walking onto stage or into a room or whatever it might be, that my body isn't doing that, my mind isn't doing that for me, I'm done.
Yeah. You don't want to do it anymore.
It's
Fun's
time to
at
call it a day because I don't care at that point.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's not the right place to be.
Yeah.
That's a wise bit of advice.
Very wise.
Very wise. So, you know, a lot of people I've been speaking for 30 plus years, and you know, kind of when you're standing in front of a crowd that just resonates with them, right? You just kind of feel that a bit because the eyes are on you and they're really tuned in and they're not playing with their phone and all of that kind of stuff. But what are some other signs that you know you have really just nailed it? Like, it's like this group loves this.
All the things that you said definitely play into it. But one of the ways you can know, especially when it's done, if you have the opportunity to meet with the people who are in the audience, if they come up and say, Tanya, that was a great job, you better start wondering if it was or not. And here's why. That's them being polite.
Absolutely.
That's just them being polite. That was great. Nice to meet you, whatever it might be. But if they can come up to you and say, you know, Tanya, I never knew that. You just changed my life. Or I'm going to go do this now that I've learned that from you. If you've transformed them in any way, time being a factor, but if they have time to tell you that, they will. And if all they have to say is, you're passionate about what you talk about. And I've heard that. People go, wow, you're passionate about public speaking. My first thought is, well, that sucked. Because I blew it somewhere. If all I've got is passion up on stage, then I'm missing something. I'm missing content. I didn't deliver to them. And everybody says, well, it's about passion. Passion's a small part of it. If it was all about passion, I would have been a catcher for the New York Yankees or standing 6 feet to the right of Eric Clapton up on stage. I have passion for baseball, hockey, football, and guitar. Guess what? I never did professionally. Baseball, hockey, football, and guitar. Right. So
sure.
It's got to be them coming to you and say, here's how you've transformed me in some way. They won't use those words, but when they say that, you've nailed it. You've done your job.
Yes.
You actually made a difference in someone's life.
Oh, I love it. And let me relate that to branding here just for a moment, guys, because when you're out there with your personal brand and you're trying to present your brand to the world and be known for something, right? It's really important that people resonate with that. And if they start mentioning your brand identifier to you, or your tagline, or something that you do specifically, here's that word, that keyword is specific, right? If they start mentioning those things to you and carrying on a conversation with you based on what you're trying to accomplish, that's fantastic. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Peter, because you're on that stage to transform lives, to make people feel like if they have a great passion for it, they don't really know exactly how to pull it all together, you can help them do that. If they're scared to death, so were you, and they can identify with that, and you can help them get over those things. Like you said, maybe not overcome, but manage that in a beautiful way, because life is all about managing everything. When bad things happen to us, we either manage that in a way that is negative, or we manage it in a way that is positive and constructive. So, I love that you said that. I'll never forget that, because that truly is, I remember feeling that way when people have come up to us after speaking and they say to us, you know what, I'm so excited. I have so many ideas now. I can't wait to get back home. I can't wait to put these ideas down. Can I follow you on social media or something like that? Those are fantastic days. And no, they don't all end like that. Sometimes I've sucked. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been a bad presentation and there was no, chemistry there. So it goes both ways. But I love the feeling when you do get that. I really do.
Yeah. Don't speak to inform, speak to transform.
There you go. I love it.
I really like that a lot.
I love it.
And it goes back to what you said earlier about enjoying what you do and really wanting to be good at it. I think those of us who do desire to give that to the crowd, give that information that we have, we want to go back and second guess what we've done. We want to go back and watch the videos ourselves to say, oh, well, you know what? I could have been clearer there. And by doing that, we continue to get better and better and better and better for the people that we're talking to. And it's a craft like anything else that has to be honed and utilized. We do it in podcasts. We've paid for coaches in podcasts to say, hey, what do you see when you see us? Well, I see you doing this and you don't need to do that. Or I see this, it works really well. And I resonated with that. So it is still utilizing somebody else's eyes and ears to hone that craft even better for everybody else.
Oh yeah. Otherwise we think we're doing everything so well. They had to have understood what I said, because I understand it.
Right.
Well, I've understood it for 30 years. Yeah, they're hearing it for the first time.
Exactly.
So if you don't look back and was that clear, or, did everybody's head turn like the dog that can't understand its master, that type thing, you've lost them, and you have to know that, to your point, Michael. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that crowd, I remember I was doing an auction one time in St. Louis, Missouri. We probably had 500 or 600 people in the crowd. And my ring guys, my bid spotters, they came up to me and they said, you're going to have a tough time. This is the worst crowd we've ever seen. Everybody's rude. They're talking back to us. They're mean. Nobody's smiling. It's tough. So I get up there thinking I'm talking to a crowd that I need to push into what I need to sell. Right. So I get up there. It was horrific. Like, it was terrible. So I see that this isn't going very well. So I call up the other guy, my backup, and I said, hey, you got to give this a shot. He sells the next 5 houses, like bam, bam, bam. I'm like, but he's making them laugh, and they're cutting up.
He was awesome.
And he read the crowd better. So my next time when I got up, I tell a joke, I start laughing. I'm relaxed. They start responding. I'm selling property. Like, so reading that crowd and working with them, I think is very important. Now, do you find that you have more butterflies? I just got to know this, more butterflies in front of a smaller crowd or a larger crowd? Because me, the bigger the crowd, I feel safer. Like the smaller the crowd, I feel like, oh, this is too intimate.
Yeah, I'm with you. A smaller crowd, I'll have more butterflies because it is intimate.
Yeah.
And a larger crowd, I think what affects people is people say, I hear it all the time when they come to me, they say, I'm good with 2 people or 3 people, but when it gets to 10 or 25 or 100 people, I can't do it. And my answer to them is, you're right. You can't speak to 10 people. It's impossible. You can't speak to 100. You can't speak to 1,000. And what I mean by that is, if you want to communicate with someone, it has to be one-to-one. There can be 1,000 people sitting in front of you, but it has to be one-to-one. If you make them feel like one of 1,000, you're never going to connect with them.
I agree with that.
If you make them feel like you're talking only to them, and every one of those 1,000 people feel that way, or as many as possible, then you're connecting with them. It's like the singer who looks into someone's eyes during a love song in a concert. And they're looking right into that person's eyes, and that person's like, just, like, the heck with my husband. I'm in love with him for the next 3 minutes. So, and I've been there and done that. I've seen my wife look that way. And so, that's how you want to make people feel. That's connecting with people.
Yes.
And so, Michael, I'm with you. If you go and try to speak to 1,000 people, you can't do it.
Right.
If you can do that one-to-one, but you're right. When it's intimate, and it's that close,
that's what I think.
Yeah.
I'm like,
30 people.
3 people here. I might not connect with you.
This could be tough.
More people.
If there's 1,000, I'm going to find somebody with a nod. And the minute I do, I'm like, all right, ma'am, I'm talking to you.
Again, it's all in the head. It's all how we perceive it. It's all how we label it.
Yeah, very good stuff. Hey, we're going to ask you 5 very important questions about your personal brand. Okay.
Okay.
And we know you're totally prepared for this. We do it like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the question number 5 on our countdown is for you, Peter. Who do you serve? Who is your ideal customer?
My ideal customer is an aspiring or professional speaker, and they're generally from either the consultant world or author world. And they speak for 2 different reasons, but they're business people sometimes, and they're going out to spread the word, whether it's from their business or something else. And those people are great prospects for me.
Okay, excellent. Number 4, how do you serve them?
I serve them in a multitude of ways. If they're local being basically New England or Northeastern US, we often work face-to-face. And we have a certain amount of sessions where we cover everything from dealing with your nerves, those feelings you get, to creating a message, and not just a message based on what you want to talk about, but a message that resonates with your audience because it's based on the audience. When you're speaking, it's all about the audience. So nerves, message, and then the other 2 things that have to support that message, your voice and how you use it, and your body language and what conversation that's having with your audience. They call it body language for a reason. So we work on that in person, if possible, Zoom, if necessary.
I love it. Okay. Love it. What qualifies you to serve them?
All the years I've been doing this. I've been doing it, like I said, almost, I guess, 35 years now I've been speaking, and I've been training about 17. So about half of those years, but I study this, and I also present it in a way a lot of public speaking coaches don't. We look at the art and the science, not just the art, but the science of it. And the science applies not only to the conscious mind, but also to the unconscious mind. There's a lot of things we do that people are reading. Why us? Why did he just make that face? Why did he raise his eyebrows? Why did he tilt his head like he doesn't understand? Why did he just cough? And then everybody else in the room starts coughing after him, which means you just lost the whole room. So why do these things happen? And the funnier part of this is the audience doesn't know they're asking those questions. Okay. We see in our unconscious mind someone raise their eyebrows and what that means at that particular moment, but we don't sit there and go, hey, Michael just raised his eyebrows. I wonder what that meant. Let me read that into this. We just make these assumptions or generalities in our head why that happened. So we look at it on both aspects, and a lot of coaches don't do that, the artistic side and the scientific side. And that's why anybody can do it, which is the great thing, because you don't have to be a supreme artist and you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Just the science of why we react the way we do and how we perform to make that happen.
True.
Yeah,
and I think in any business, the creative and the logical sides really have to meet if you're going to have a well-rounded business.
Yeah, think about you guys with branding. You can have all that logic you need, but if it doesn't catch someone's attention,
right,
what good is it? And vice versa. It can be very, very eye-catching, but if it doesn't resonate with the target audience for that company that you're helping, again, what does it matter?
Right.
That's so true. So true. All right. And our countdown, here's number 2. How does it make their life better, what you do for them?
One is they're more effective at communicating, and we're lost without being able to communicate well. You don't have to be, the next Dr. King or Winston Churchill or Ronald Reagan. You don't have to be like that. You just have to learn to communicate with people. But here's what it gives you. When you're able to do this, you develop a level of confidence. And I don't care where you started. You could have started with sky-high confidence. You develop another layer, another level of confidence that you didn't think was capable. And that permeates the rest of your life.
Oh, you couldn't have said it better.
Agree 100%.
And we tell clients that all the time. Speaking, anything, building your brand, public speaking, those things give you so much confidence. And you don't even really know going into it that you were lacking confidence in that manner, or in that particular area of your life. But when you find it, it's like, wow, look what I found. Right?
Yeah. Communication is just that important.
It is very, okay. Number 1, because we can talk more about that. Number 1, what sets you in our countdown, what sets you apart from others that do the same thing in your industry?
Well, I probably answered that before. And it's just that I try to look at all aspects. And a lot of people are they put people in a silo. When you're speaking about this, or when you're opening up, you do this. I try to teach that in the context of the person. Okay, it can't be the same way for everybody. We're not the same person as the next guy or woman. So it has to be in our own capabilities. So some people, not all, but a lot of people just say, when this happens, when you say this, make this hand gesture. Well, no, that looks so fake. Or I like to think of it like a golf coach or any other coach like that, where we can video it, we can look back, and we can, at the beginning, neglect your weaknesses, your distractions, and focus on what you do well, and build that to how it has to agree with this art and science. Now, if the distractions are still getting in the way and haven't gone to the wayside, well, we'll address those too. But I love to work on strengths and worry about the other things later, because a lot of times they just don't matter anymore.
Right.
And it gives you the momentum when you're thinking about the positive things. You're on a nice roll. You have that momentum and you want to do better. If all you do is focus on the negative things, well, all you feel is negativity.
Exactly. And that doesn't help anybody.
That's true.
They get turned off. And what I'm trying to do is, again, give them that confidence. I'm a firm believer that competence gets confidence. So when you become competent at something, you get very confident. And that's how I see this working. When I can help someone get very competent at speaking, are they going to be nervous still? Yep. So will they learn to manage it? Yes. But now they have a competency that they didn't know what they didn't know. Right. They have that now, and that confidence comes along.
Yeah.
Another takeaway.
Another great takeaway. Do you find, this is an interesting off the script question. Do you find that, because I like what you said about, you can't just blanket it, when you say this, do this hand gesture, or when you say this, pause here and stuff like that. I mean, we all are unique. One of the things about personal branding is we teach people all the time. we can give the same identifier to more than one person. They all are different because they all approach that different. And, you know, to use a guitar reference, right? You can take the exact same guitar and you can hand it to Eddie Van Halen and he sounds like Eddie Van Halen. You can give it to Stevie Ray Vaughan and he sounds like Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? So because they bring, as auctioneers, we found people to imitate, right? That's how we got started in doing it. And you listen and you try to imitate it. But even if you could imitate it in the real world, when you put it to practice, you not only have taken what you've learned, but you've made it yours, and now it's unique to you. Don't you find that to be the case too? Every speaker unique to their own person,
style,
right? Their own style. They add that flavor and color to it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be one speaker talking about each subject.
Exactly. It'd just be,
and it would be a boring
robots.
world.
Incredibly boring world. And you know, there's a reason there are so many different singers. At some point, you got to think, why do we need more singers? The singers out there are tremendous at what they can do. They can sing all different types of songs. Just let them sing all the songs. Well, we don't want that in life. We want that variety. We don't want everybody to be perfect. You could take, say, Adele with her great voice, Beyonce the same way. Well, we don't want everybody to sound as good as them.
Right.
We want that person who is, it's a little rougher or whatever. So here and there. So we want that variety in life. And it's the same thing with the speakers. I'm with you, Michael. I tell my clients, let's find someone for you to emulate, where you just say, I like the way they speak. I like the way they, what they're doing. That might be because it resonates with you on a level that, hey, that's kind of how I speak, or that's how I would like to speak, whatever it might be. As opposed to, let me show you this person who speaks nothing like you, and let's try to make you them. Yeah. Can't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Be so uncomfortable. That would be like me. And because I didn't speak much, I didn't develop a large vocabulary in my lifetime when I was young. But that has served me well, because you shouldn't use 4 and 5 syllable words when you're speaking. Sometimes you need to, but for the most part, again, look at any Kennedy speech, Reagan speech, King speech, Churchill speech, 1 and 2 syllable words, almost all the way through, almost 100%. So by luck, that served me well. But you'll have people saying, well, I want to be that person. Peter, you should speak like that. And I can't use 5 syllable words. You want to see my stutter come back? That'll come back in an instant if I try to use a 5 syllable word. So it's like, I'll get 3 syllables through and that'll be it. So yeah, you know, people have to be themselves. They have to be the foundation, and we can build on that.
That's a great segue into the next question, Peter. Okay, so what is the one message you want to leave our listeners with today when it comes to their personal brand?
When it comes to their personal brand, is to determine why what they do and how they do it resonates with their prime target audience, whether that's as a speaker or otherwise, and then find a way to keep giving that message, maybe refine it a little so it's even more powerful, to that audience on a consistent basis.
That is a takeaway for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is the crux. We believe that is the crux. I believe that's why my business has grown in the real estate industry. I learned it from her. And I definitely agree with that 100%. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, thank you.
How, Peter, how can prospects reach you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
They can find out everything they need to know about me at petergeorgepublicspeaking.com.
All right. petergeorgepublicspeaking.com. Peter, it's been such a pleasure having you on Be Bold Branding today. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You bet.
It always is.
If you are ready to take your brand to the next level, Michael and I want to help you. Go to discussyourbrand.com. You'll fill out a short form and give us more information about you, so we're better prepared to discuss your challenges and your goals and get you where you want to be, just like Peter does with his clients, right? All you have to do is take the first step, discussyourbrand.com.
Hey guys, we try to bring value like this every week to you. Great people like Peter. Work with him, especially in the speaking arena, if that's what you want to do. And we encourage you to do it because, especially in this world of YouTube, this world of podcasting, you want to be out there to your ideal customers, and he will help you do that. We try to bring that value to you every week. So hit that subscribe button so you're the first to get notified. Be sure you hit notifications. We want you to know about it. We do these things for prosperity. When we talk about prosperity, we're not just talking about money. We're talking about the full 360 of an abundant life we truly wish for all of y'all. We know at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. So we say, be bold, folks, especially with your brand, especially in your speaking, and especially in 2022. Thank you, Ms. Tanya, and thank you, Mr. Peter.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on Be Bold Branding.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.